Hi, and welcome to BA Brew. I'm Pete.
I'm Bindu.
And I'm Neil.
And today we shall be talking about cybersecurity and business analysis. So we have a very special guest with us, Bindu, who has recently authored a book for BCS on this very topic, cybersecurity and business analysis. So I thought we'd probably start off, if that's okay with you guys, with the term cybersecurity. So we hear that term quite a lot these days. But what's your take on it, Bindu? I mean, everyone seems to have a slightly different perspective on it. So I'm interested in finding out your take on it.
Absolutely. It's a brilliant question, Pete. Probably, I think, Neil, if you're reading the book, you will notice I use a lot of anecdotes and stories and analogies. So I'm going to use an analogy here as well, or a story here. Probably you both might have heard the elephant and the six blind men story. So
it sounds familiar, Bindu, but I can't remember
it. So yes, basically, there are six blind men around the huge elephant, and they're trying to describe how the elephant looks like. So the way I have seen through my work and research and all of that, cybersecurity is exactly something. It's huge. It's like this huge elephant, and all of us, coming from different perspectives, are trying to define it from our own perspective. So, if we were to ask a question to the compliance team member, what does cybersecurity mean to them? Probably they might say in the lines of, okay, it's all about compliance, could be privacy or any other GDPR, for example. Somebody working in IT might say, oh, it's about securing the network and the firewalls. And the system architect might say, securing data and systems. And Neil would have his own, talking about, oh, it's a policy and we have to compliance and this and that. So all of us, again, a business person or a business leader might say, oh, you know what, it's all technical. I don't understand much about it, but I have a team who can really take care to secure the systems and the data and all the things we do. So each of us have our own understanding, and hence is the confusion. The moment we say cybersecurity, we all see through our own lenses. And many times, even when I've been kind of talking to people and say, you know what, cybersecurity training, immediately by default, their mind goes to cybersecurity awareness training, which we all anyway, are obligated to do in our organizations. But it's much, much more than that. So from a BA perspective, just to very, give you a succinct answer and to put it in a single sentence, which I struggle most of the time, is cybersecurity is to ensure that the value we co-create is, which BA's responsibility is to include and ensure that that value is secured, and that we have to do through our analysis, and that is a BA's responsibility, period.
Excellent. Well, no, it's a very good answer, and I guess in some respects, if it wasn't for lots of criminals out there trying to do the wrong thing, we wouldn't even be sitting here thinking about this, would we? Because most of the time, BAs are focusing on doing positive things and bringing about positive improvement and positive outcomes and benefits and value. But we've got to protect them because there are people out there that want to corrupt them, want to steal them, and so on and so forth. Can I just come to you, Neil? What's your take as a CIO, as a Chief Information Officer?
Yeah, so absolutely. So very much in my early career, I was just working on an IT support desk, and it was just all about those user workstations, keeping them secure and making sure there was no viruses being downloaded onto them. But obviously now, as I've moved up into this Chief Information Officer role, it's more about those policies. It's all about those security policies that we're keeping up to date, and we're answering continuous security questionnaires from all our suppliers. It takes up a lot of our time, and it's really now a really key area of cybersecurity for us. It's not much fun, but it needs to be done. But I feel like the Cybersecurity Centre, there's a lot there. It's a great resource, a great website, it's a great body of information they've got there. And even the certification around the Cyber Essentials that they launched in 2014, that's been a great asset to have. And it really sort of opens your eyes up to how vast cybersecurity really is. because you get this survey through and it just asks you lots of questions you never thought about. I remember when we first did it in 2015, and there were just certain aspects in there I've never really thought about too much in cybersecurity, but it's a really great piece of information to have, and
Brilliant.
great
Okay.
certification to have as well.
I guess, Neil, you and I have another joint interest as well, because we're both members of the board of Assist, and as so we have lots of responsibilities to protect the assets of our business, but also to be compliant with whatever regulations apply to our business as well. So it's a good thing that cybersecurity is there, because it really helps us to do those things, even though, I mean, from my point, obviously from your point, you know an awful lot more about it. But from my point, I'm not an expert in cybersecurity, but I do have a lot of responsibilities with regard to cybersecurity. So I'm glad that there are experts out there, and this exists. So coming on to my next question, I guess, what inspired you to write the book? It's a bit of a big question, no doubt, Bindu. What inspired you to write the book?
I think I've been doing this work for some time. Pete, probably you remember we did a couple of gigs as well for this forum and the European conference, BA conference. Yeah, it was basically one of my personal experience working with an organization where I was just assigned a project which was almost at the bottom of the backlog, and it was there for probably around a year and a half or something like that. And just because there was capacity in the project, this project was assigned to me. And when it was assigned, there was also a solution along with the problem. And as any good BA would do, I kind of started understanding what is the root cause of this problem, and is the solution that is being devised some time back, is it still relevant? And as I started to understand and talk to people, it occurred that it was basically a data breach that had happened, and the solution what they had devised was to address this, a control to address that particular issue. However, even though it was a data breach and the solution was thought about it, the whole organization didn't even think it was a priority project. And what really alarmed me at that time was this particular data breach didn't happen just once. It happened multiple times. So the problem was ongoing, and the operational reports were actually highlighting that there have been excessive downloads. And here we are talking about a subscription organization, which is, their content is their bread, butter, cream, everything, cheese. And again, a very prestigious organization. So, I mean, if you look at the risk here, it was a huge risk. And that really kind of surprised me. And whenever I spoke to anybody, they didn't realize to kind of look at the risk the way I was seeing it. And it was like, oh, PAs, analysis gets into paralysis and all that. So kind of a thing. But however, this particular incident really, kind of opened my eyes into another world. And I started questioning, as we BAs do, okay, who is responsible for this? And how do we kind of even ensure that this gets the attention that it really requires? And then I think all the arrows were trying to kind of, towards me, which means as a BA, should I be including this in my analysis? And again, as I was started thinking about it, what do we analyze? We analyze the environment, internal, external, the present and the future, and all of those. So, which means it made a logical sense for me to kind of include this within my analysis, and also deliver a complete analysis, because the organization has trusted, analyzed something. So there is, kind of an undocumented trust between the BAs and the organizations or the clients. That's what I always say. So, which means that we are expected to deliver a complete analysis. We don't take decisions, but we deliver the analysis. So, based on that analysis, the organization, the leaders, whoever are the decision makers, can make those conscious decisions. And that is where I found a ground for me to say, okay, if I am a good BA, I have to deliver a complete analysis, which means that this should be part of it. So that is when, it all started. And of course, I'm talking this probably 7, 8 years back. And I had to go back to university to study information security. And yes, once I did that, at the same time, IIBA was trying to put some certification together around the cybersecurity analysis. So I just happened to be part of that team as well. And since then, I've been kind of a keen advocate, speaking at every opportunity, every conference, webinars, discussion forums, bringing this through articles, just to kind of bring this awareness. Because as an organization, like we are, of course, transforming now, but quickly. We have been transforming, but now quickly. But there was a point where, we just left the cybersecurity to NFRs, which was fine up until some time. And yes, we have been doing it. So yes, after one of the conference sessions, after my presentation, PCS came and asked, "We would like you to write a book. Would you want to do it?" And that's exactly where the seed kind of started. And it took ages, as you know now, day and night. All those laughs, cries, everything. The stories, the essence, the knowledge, and I think the brilliant part for me, or the most challenging part for me, was both the business analysis and cybersecurity are two very distinctive, very theoretical oriented subjects on their own. And just to identify those bits, how I can marry these two and where with that integration happens was a bit of a challenge for me. But yeah, you can tell me, and Neil can tell me when he completes the book,
Excuse me.
how much it has, it has kind of really
I
been
I
there.
think that's an interesting point, though, isn't it? Because a lot of people, I guess, that are working in business analysis probably kind of think, you know, cybersecurity is a technical issue, isn't it? So we've got teams that deal with that. As a BA, I don't need to worry about that, or I just need to make sure that I've got a non-functional requirement that says we need to deal with this. Um, but actually, I think, this sort of leads me into my next question. I guess you present a one-day workshop on cybersecurity and business analysis, and you know, one of the things that's within that workshop, or within the topics there, talks about the need for business analysis and cybersecurity integration. So, I mean, if you wouldn't mind, just can you just elaborate what you mean in that context? I think it sort of leads on quite nicely from that conversation, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's a very brilliant question, Pete, because that's the normal understanding that it's very technical subject. Yes, it is technical subject. And as you have seen how we behaves, BAs have been kind of educating and adapting. Because if I look back my own journey, although I came from a technical background, working as a systems analyst developer, I was in a position to kind of understand the most of the technical aspects in a project. But however, I've seen BAs who have come from a purely business background. Also, they have adapted themselves to kind of understand, about the technicalities of the project. Like they would be termed as systems analysts, and so on and so forth. And now today with data and all the other stuff. So similarly, there is a kind of an learning journey here. But again, we don't have to be experts, but there is a kind of little bit of learning for us in terms of the language, in terms of those vocabularies. So, like as I just mentioned earlier, that BAs help organizations to co-create the value. And in order to do that, we do, our analysis. We are aware of the external and internal air factors. We use, like techniques like PESTLE, SWOT analysis. We do all of that. We analyze the current and the future business landscapes. So today, our business landscape, not even future, today is kind of completely driven by tech, unlike just the business need or the customer need, which was probably a decade earlier. So today we are in a position where we are telling our customers what else they can do. So, which means technology is just not only the essential, but a very integral part of what we do and to the success of our organization. So today, most of the businesses are existing because of the tech, and I don't think so. There are lot many businesses that could run if there's no technology. So in the same way, yes, we BS have to kind of educate and adopt and redefine what today's business really mean. So it is to kind of understand the systems and the technology, and today how we are adapting to AI. So similarly, this need to integrate cybersecurity. And I always say, wherever there's technology, there is cybersecurity. Again, I use the analogy of a stick. When you pick up one end of the stick, you inevitably pick up the other end of the stick. So security anyway comes along with that. So BAs have to understand that when we create the value, why do we leave the security of it to somebody else? The whole organization works as a team, collaborates, and that is where when you create something, it has to be protected. And of course, there are so many reasons. We all are aware of why it needs to be protected. Anything of value needs to be protected. So yes, that is where the integration, and to do that, PS have to understand why it is we need to deliver this analysis holistically and then by include it. And yes, part of, to answer your question again, in the training as well, that is a kind of, it's an experiential training where because normally when you say cybersecurity training, it's very dry theoretical, but this particular workshop, what I'm delivering, is experiential, where people actually go through some of the exercises. It's all about realizing, understanding why we need to do that, and that is where the need to why, to understand and realize why there is a need, because once we understand that why, we can then do the rest.
That's brilliant, and I completely agree. As you were talking there, I was suddenly thinking it's almost as if we're at the place with cybersecurity that the systems development world was at probably 30 or 40 years ago, where testing was seen as something you could almost bolt on to the end of software development. And of course, now, testing is an integral part of everything that people do along the way, even BAs, doing what might be called static testing, checking documentation, making sure that things are correct and that they align. So it's embedded in everything that people do nowadays to do with building digital solutions. And it sounds like we're at that point with cybersecurity that it's so fundamental, we just leave it as an afterthought. We've got to embed it in everything that we do along the way. Otherwise, it's going to catch us out at some point. Don't know what you think about that, you guys. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I actually, during lockdown, I attended a technology in business analysis webinar. There was like 150 sort of BAs on this webinar, and they launched a poll and they said, what is the biggest concern or threat that you're not aware of? And I think 80% of the poll said cybersecurity. And it's not, they need to be cybersecurity experts. It's just understanding what cybersecurity is and how it fits into that business landscape, like you say, and just having a holistic view of it. It's not just about antivirus software. It's a lot more than that. It's everything you've touched on, Bin.
It's like a lot of things, isn't it? It's raising the awareness so that people are much more aware of something rather than having this kind of siloed view. Oh, it's someone else's problem. It's dealt with by someone else, so I don't need to know about it. But it's interesting you raised the issue of technology, because that leads us seemingly into, seamlessly into um, I guess what probably needs to be our final question. Otherwise, our producer's going to start going like this to me in a moment. But of course, we couldn't do a brew without thinking of good old AI nowadays. Everyone talks about AI. It's on the tips of everyone's tongue. And of course, again, the rise in the use of AI, is becoming sort of astronomical now, isn't it? But as with a lot of these things, new technologies, there's a lot of excitement about it. People start to embrace it and use it and dabble with it. But of course, that can be done in a positive way, but it can also be done in a negative way. So, if organizations can start to use AI for good, then does that mean that criminals can start to use AI for bad? Um, so I guess the question here is, do you think that with the advent of AI, it makes it easier for criminals to commit cyber attacks?
Uh, this is again one of the questions, about AI. Everything that every time it pops up. Uh, Again, I would use another analogy, as you know, Pete, which is something to deliver a message. This AI is also like a double-edged sword. It's brilliant. And when we talk about from a cybersecurity perspective, yes, it can absolutely help a lot, especially just by even analyzing the huge amounts of the volumes of data we are talking about. Everything is data these days. So yes, from threat detection to proactive, prevention of those incidents, fraud detections in financials, and thereby even reducing the speed in how we kind of respond to those threats as well. Especially one of the top incidents is due to the patch updates. So that again, so automating all of these things, AI does a brilliant job. And also we are talking about now the facial recognition and voice recognition, and we know what are the on the contrary, the deep fakes and the negative impacts of those. And the other issue with AI is the bias, which where how do we create those training models? So along with this, like as I said, it's a double-edged sword. So as a BA, the way we are kind of tuned is the moment when anything is presented there, we just don't take it as a face value. We just don't assume it. We start analyzing, okay, this information you're giving, is it right? Why is it right? Where is it? Kind of we start putting that analysis lens to it. And when I see it just as a tool, it is the one who is using the tool is the key here. And there are a lot of researchers that are coming up, especially these days, which are talking about, we as humans, we shouldn't lose our intellectual capabilities, because it is that intellectual capability which actually tells us how we use this AI for the good or not so good. So security itself, the way it has to be approached is it's in a positive approach. It's having a positive mindset to it, because we have something of value, we protect it, not because somebody's going to take. Yes, that's also another way of seeing. So from that perspective, I think AI is just another tool. But how we use it, or the organizations use it, it all depends on how strong, or what is our intellectual or the moral compass is pointing to.
Mhm, mhm,
Based on
mhm.
that, we can actually use it, and that's the way we all should be thinking. That's my take on that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that way of talking, thinking about it. And I mean, when you said about it's a tool, and we shouldn't lose our abilities. And one of the things that, of course, humans have over machines is we have things like a moral compass, and we have ethics, and we have values and principles that we live by. And in the world of AI, there's a phrase, isn't there? Human in the loop. So it's saying, right, yes, use the AI, but sometimes you need the human in the loop to make sure the AI does the right thing and not the wrong thing. But of course, unfortunately, there are certain people out there that see it as a tool to do the wrong thing, as in, it's going to make creating havoc and causing these cyber attacks much easier by using AI. And one thing that came to focus for me this week is my wife mentioned a situation. I haven't got a quote or anything for it, but she mentioned that she'd seen something in the news where uh, cyber criminals are now using emulated voices. to then make a phone call, and it sounds like it's someone that you know at the other end, and they're saying, "Look, I'm really a bit short this month. Can you send me some money?" And things like that. And because it actually sounds like the person, that's quite scary, isn't it? To think that those sort of things, could happen. But I guess to kind of flip it so it's not too negative at the end of the brew, um, AI presumably could be used to help contra some of the attacks as well. So you could end up having a situation of, the bad AI fighting the good AI, and as humans, we just almost detach ourselves and watch going on. I don't know, is that a flight of fancy, or might there be something in that? You think?
Neil, do you want to take this?
Well, I think you're right. I don't want to delve too much into it. It's interesting how we talk about the evolution of technology, because it reminds me of when we started using Microsoft 365 back in sort of 2012. And it was great that we suddenly were able to access our emails from anywhere in the world, from any workstation, which was a great piece of technology that suddenly came along. We weren't reliant on our files that were running on our own laptops or PCs at home or in the office. But of course, comes with that, a couple of years later, when the cyber criminals catch up, suddenly they've got an easy gateway into your inboxes just through a couple of sets of credentials, and they're in there. So that's just how easy it then evolves. And you've got people with the wrong, what do we call that? The moral
Compass. Yes, the moral compass. Yeah, I like that. That's
what works is. Yeah, that's my thoughts really on that. Yeah, but in terms of AI, I think it's to some respects, it's always been in there in the background. That's basically what algorithms are running the virus scans, checking the viruses. It's always been in there, but just not as sort of mainstream as it is now, if you like.
Absolutely. Right. So to wrap things up, any final thoughts? If I can go to you first, Bindu.
Yes, I think my final thoughts would be the one I mentioned in the beginning. Cybersecurity is to ensure that the value as BAs we co-create is secured, and it's the BA's responsibility to include cybersecurity holistically within our analysis.
Brilliant. And from you, Neil?
Well, I was actually going to mention the people, because we've not mentioned the people once today in this podcast, but actually they're the most important part of cybersecurity. And as my employees may be watching this podcast, I think just to say that, they are the most people that keeping our organisation secure is the people. So, yeah.
Yeah. And also, I guess, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So we can use all of this technology to fight against cybersecurity, but, you can't completely legislate for human nature, can you? And sometimes it might be that someone, with the best will in the world, just happens to divulge something that they shouldn't divulge, in a social setting, and you don't know what could happen with that. That could trigger something. You may just happen to have someone in the room listening who's got, some dodgy moral compass, shall we say? Yeah, excellent. So thanks, Bindu, for joining us, and thanks, Neil, for joining us. It was very thought-provoking conversation. And thanks to everyone watching and listening to us as well. So thanks for joining us today. If anyone has any ideas for future episodes, please do get in touch. You can email us at babrew@AssistKD.com. And of course, don't forget to share and subscribe.